Right, so first of all, I did complete the main story completely. That is what I did. Main story is kinda okay. The problem with it is that it is kinda boring. It is a bit boring, like I won't say no to that. But overall, this is like one of the Monster Hunters I'm actually enjoying so much. It's not even funny. Even with all the performance issues, of course. Though to be honest, I don't mind like 60 to 90 FPS if the game just won't crash. And frame rate sometimes causes crashes, which is a bit annoying. But of course, it doesn't really make sense that this game only runs at X amount of FPS. It doesn't make sense. This game should run way better. And it's so blurry. Why is it so blurry? I don't get it. When it comes to gameplay, I just like everything about it. Besides that one time in campaign where NPC goes like, "Oh no, take cover, the monster is preparing a very hard attack." And then the monster, literally you don't wanna do that. You don't wanna take cover. You need to like bring down something on top of the monster. So yeah, that's something. I also hate this effect on the screen where you're like close to certain vegetation. It like fades it out of existence. It's super annoying, I hate it. But pure gameplay-wise, this game is absolutely amazing. This is everything I wanted from Monster Hunter to become. Like when it comes to gameplay, they just outdid themselves so goddamn hard. And I did play Worlds and Rise, and I gotta say that those I kinda didn't enjoy because of the big difficulty spikes without actual understanding at all. It was really hard to get what the fuck the monsters were doing. And here it's like more streamlined, more like for newer people as well. It's very nice. I really enjoyed the wipe mechanic being just to run away rather than some bullshit that game just refuses to tell you about. Because I gotta say, the firefly thingies, you know, the green firefly effects and shit like that, that just isn't a well done way of like telling you what you have to do. It wasn't really. I just found that one attack where, you know, you have to bring down with the slingshot the rock on that big one, the monster, the big one. I don't remember what its name was. That one was kinda whatever. I really didn't like that. But yeah, they seriously need to do something about performance. They seriously need to do something about the game being so blurry. Because it seriously looks so blurry for no reason. It really does. Also, the auto-sacred thingy is so annoying. And even after disabling it, it still kinda works. Like, there are problems with this game. We have to address that. There are problems. They gotta fix them for this game to be decent. Because so far, this game is... I'm unironically scared that this game might die from all the issues with what the game is doing. I even watched, like, how it works on PlayStations and Xboxes. And... I mean, the stats say otherwise. Like, people said that it runs fine on consoles. But the stats of, you know... The stats of how it goes... That is not a fine playing game on the PlayStation. Even on 30 FPS mode, it still has frame time spikes on fucking 30 FPS. Also, PlayStation uses FSR 1. That is like ancient tech at this point. So like if you put performance mode, your game just looks like absolute fucking doggy doodle. So like if you're saying that it runs fine on PlayStation, you just cannot see the problems with it. Which is obviously fair, like not everyone pays attention to certain stuff. But this game does have problems. And they gotta address them if we want to, like, you know, have a game that is actually gonna keep the player count. Especially that Monster Hunter usually were going for, like, you know, the... What is it called? Monster Hunter usually goes for, like, the expansions and such. And a lot of people already refunded the game. And it's not even because they didn't like the game. The only reason why they refunded it is because of the performance problems and optimization problems. Like, the only reason why my game looks so vibrant right now is because I tweaked HDR so goddamn much to the point that 90% of average users wouldn't. Like, someone else just wants to boot the game and play the game, right? Another thing is that gamut of this game, which is like the color vibrance and shit, whatever the fuck it's called. Like, I don't know the actual terms. Is terrible in PlayStation, especially on HDR. It's terrible. Everything just looks so grayish. Like, this is not even console. This game looks and performs how it should. Like, they gotta address those issues. But yeah, gameplay is top tier, music is top tier, enemy design is top tier, and then the performance is just holding everything back so goddamn hard. 90% of players are just not gonna deal with this shit, right? They just won't. For like more casual gamers, this sure works. And with someone with like super beefy PC, because you can kind of brute force the problems of the game. But in the end, it's still not a smooth experience. It doesn't look how it runs. It's very blurry, even though it uses one of the latest techs. It just has so many problems from that standpoint. It's not even funny. And it's like, Dragon's Dogma 2 fixed a lot of those issues, and this game didn't. Somehow, even though they are playing on the same engine, and also have the same premise, and Dragon's Dogma 2 has a bigger map. On top of that, first things first, that probably is like 90% of the performance problems. There is seriously something wrong with texture compression. Look at this, like if you just look away from the texture, it sometimes just doesn't load properly fast. Something is wrong with the texture streaming. Not to mention that if someone was ever wondering why it says direct storage here on CPU, this game just does have direct storage, but for some reason does not utilize it whatsoever ever. Even if you have the proper setup for it, it just doesn't work. Here it also says estimated VRAM usage. That is not correct here because something is clearly wrong with texture streaming, causing the game to basically spike in VRAM usage. So usually you will run out of VRAM, even though it shouldn't, because it clearly says, oh yeah, nothing here is wrong here, like this should be just fine. Also, another thing is that ambient light quality, kinda, if you just look here, even on the preview, kinda on low looks a bit better. But in certain scenarios, the high looks better. But on low, it kind of looks like less flat, right? Like you can see here, even on the preview. So that's something wrong here. Another factor is that a lot of people found out that SSS scattering can cause massive texture problems. Another thing is that all of the shaders are kind of like super low quality. Another thing is that upscaling mode, for some reason, still uses anti-aliasing that is provided from the game, effectively causing it to be very blurry instead of using the one that is like baked with the DLSS. Another factor is that it like seems like the FSR1 that is used by PlayStation is still there. What else is there? Wind simulation for some cases of PCs can unironically blast your performance to like 0. So for most configurations, if you really plan to play on like lower end hardware, go to low. Like don't use this high. Apparently this can like break the performance completely. Oh, another thing is that they unironically have a typo instead of a config file. There is like some setting called like texture resolution stuff, and one is literally like typed instead of resolution correctly. It's like resoluton or something like that. And apparently a lot of people had like, after fixing that thing, had a lot of like people had better performance overall. Another thing is that there is some like occlusion, or I don't even know what to call it, but rasterization of some sorts, that whenever the volumetric fog gets dispersed, there is a lot of ghosting appearing everywhere. It's just baffling to me that a lot of those issues have never been in Dragon's Dogma 2. Even at release, that game was, to be fair, running like absolute shit. It was. Dragon's Dogma 2, to be fair, looks 10 times better than this game. It does. And another thing is that it didn't have most of those like insane issues. Something is clearly wrong with the code of this game. I really hope they address these issues, because a lot of players are not gonna play this game for all of these problems. Because it unironically ruins the experience for 90% of people. Like, that's just kinda how it works. It's not about hardware, it's not about your drivers, it's not about your Windows installation, it's not about you at all. It's the game's performance just being absolutely borked. I know this sounds weird, I'm not trying to shit on the game, because the game, as I said, the fundamentals of the game are really, really solid. Like, the game improves a lot on other Monster Hunters. It feels really nice to play, very smooth, very fluid, but the performance really needs addressing, which I really hope will happen, but I have really, really low, like, you know, hopes that it's actually gonna happen, considering that Dragon's Dogma 2 is running better, but still nowhere near. I also know that RE engine is not made for open world games, but why use it then if it's not made for that? That is also like the problem I have, but whatever. Also, another thing is that highest high resolution textures, unless you have a GPU from literally top of the line, there were some people that said, but they basically, RTX 4090 goes up to 20 gigabytes of VRAM usage when you enable highest resolution textures, and they already look still pretty bad. Like, the textures, no matter what setting you put here, look absolutely abysmal. And on low, or like low-end hardware, that is what you want to go for, because otherwise, if you pan camera very fast, you will have stutters, visible stutters, because the texture decompression is broken in this game right now. Logis looks absolutely terrible, like PlayStation 1 graphics. There is also clearly something wrong with shadows on characters, because outside of like, you know, certain places, shadows are not present on characters whatsoever. Look at here. At first I thought that might be like something like related to, you know, the game style or whatever, but it's clear to me and a lot of people that it is not the case. The shadows are just not present on characters outside of like, you know, visible light source basically. Like there is a lot of issues with this game, and they gotta do something about them because this is just crazy. Another thing is that DLAA, which is supposed to be a native resolution anti-aliasing, actually loses a lot of finer detail on like certain parts like grass and such, and Quality doesn't. Quality looks unironically better, more finer details. Like there is a lot of issues with the game, like there is. I completely understand praising this game because it is very, very good, like when it comes to gameplay style and such. But when it comes to pure optimization and graphics, this is absolutely just... It just shouldn't even ever happen. Like, this is everything wrong. Someone reviewed that on Steam. This is literally everything wrong with optimization in games from 2024. Like, it seriously is just that bad. So when it comes to people that don't have the privilege, because it is a very, very big privilege to have a graphics card that is actually decent in this day and age, unfortunately, because gamers do deserve better than this, the prices that we currently have. If you don't have close to top end of the hardware, do not even think about buying this game until they are at least fix some performance issues. It is unironically unplayable on anything below pretty much high-end territory. And if you really, really want to, then you will have to deal with graphics that are basically out of PlayStation 1, crashes, stuttering, and a lot of frame depths, frame rate drops, frame time deviations. Like, this game is gonna run like absolute doggy poo-poo, even though it doesn't look anywhere close to how it's supposed to run. So, like, I cannot recommend for anyone to buy this game in its current state if you don't have top end of the hardware. That's basically also what the Digital Foundry said. And I stand by that 100%. Like, if you don't have top end of the hardware, do not even consider buying this. Gameplay is great, but you have to like hold down because you're not gonna enjoy your time. It's unfortunately how it goes. A lot of people also said that they have like some sort of locks basically, where their story would like just lock up. Like characters would just stop during the cutscene walks periods where they just like super slow walk. And for some people they would just stop, and that's basically a soft locked game. Like it doesn't just work, story doesn't progress, nothing. A lot of people have issues like that. I personally didn't have any issues with my characters just stopping and not playing, like, you know, I couldn't be able to be played in the game. But there is a lot of people that did have that. So as of current state of this game, I just cannot recommend it whatsoever. But if you can be super ignorant to all the performance issues, or to all the problems, to all the optimization issues, to everything wrong with the bugs, to everything wrong with the possible softlocks, to everything wrong with pretty much 90% of the game's core, then by all means, go for it. If you don't mind crushing all the time, then, I mean... Because when it comes to just pure gameplay, I'm not saying story, gameplay is great. Story is terrible. I'm gonna say, story is absolutely terrible. It is super slow. Like, first 2 chapters are fine because they kinda like introduce you to the game and such. But later on, the story gets super linear, looks absolutely whatever. It's just boring to even listen to them talk about anything. The sections where you're literally just forced to see them walk for like 10 minutes straight are just insane. Once again, for me the game runs fine, but my opinion is always gonna be for the people. I am not gonna base my opinion just because my game runs fine, sometimes crashes and whatever. I am gonna base my opinion about what people are saying, what the actual, like, you know, tests on certain hardware look like, what the config file says, and config file for this game is an absolute fucking disaster. It's an absolute disaster. It looks like something like a school project. But yeah, that's pretty much it for, like, you know, the more non-aggressive approach on a rant, basically. I don't want to shit on the game for no reason, as it is pretty good still. It just has its issues, way too many to be like acceptable. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the rant section, I guess.